Hey everyone, I'd like to talk about anxiety today. So, I personally have anxiety, and that's just a result of all of the traumas I've gone through in my life. And I think it's something that's much more prevalent than it used to be. However, is it actually more prevalent, or is it just actually being recognized now? Things like biting at your nails, picking at your cuticles, twirling your hair. These are all things that people do when they're anxious. They do these things to occupy their minds and to keep them busy, and it's a lot of the times it's unconscious. Um, so I think that this has been going on for much longer than has been fully recognized, and that more people were experiencing it. Because even in 2023, I have to come on here and say anxiety is a real thing. It is a diagnosable condition that you can permanently and chronically have. And I know it seems ridiculous that in 2023 I have to say that, but just the other day I had someone tell me that they were told that anxiety wasn't real. Yes, actually, it is. There is scientific proof that there is actual chemical changes in your brain chemistry that occur when you have chronic anxiety. It's real, it's proven by science. So now that we got that out of the way, the question is how do we deal with anxiety, right? Um, it's oftentimes it's a result of traumas that have happened in our past, and it's those big traumas. Like for me, I was sexually assaulted when I was 3. um, I have been divorced 3 times. I had a child at the age of, I was pregnant at 18. I had my daughter at 19. I was a single mom for most of her life. You know what I mean? Like there's all these things that I can look back over my life and say, hey, this is all this trauma. So trauma isn't something that just happens right then, and then maybe you go to counseling for it and you get past the trauma itself and you become okay with the trauma and you say, yep, this is a thing that happened to me and I've survived it and I'm moving on. But the reality of it is that there is actually a lasting imprint on your brain, and it actually will cause you to behave differently than maybe you would have if you hadn't had that traumatic experience. And like I said, it's not only just those big things like what I mentioned, but we saw a very large uptick in people with anxiety and going into the doctor to get put on medication for anxiety when the whole 2020 COVID thing happened, right? When everything was shut down and people were taken away from being able to come within 6 feet of another person unless they lived in your own house. And so you were only spending any sort of time with people you lived with. Or when you were out in public, everybody was wearing a mask, and so you could only see this much of their face. So you weren't seeing a person's whole face. Everybody was living in fear of catching it, or you were living in fear of the vaccine. Either way you look at it, either side of that spectrum that you fall on, you were worried about something. And a prolonged state, because let's be honest, it wasn't just 2 weeks. It was, how many years are we going on now? 3? 2? 3? Something like that. We're still dealing with this, right? You can't go to a hospital and not be required. You're required to wear a mask if you go to the emergency room or if you go into the hospital for any reason. You're required to wear a mask while you're in the waiting room. The nurses and the doctors all wear masks. So it's it's an ongoing trauma that we've just sort of gotten used to. I don't know if that's something you ever truly get used to, but it's become very commonplace for us to just live in this state of anxiety, right? So, all of that aside, how do we deal with it, right? Well, so I have a couple of tips for that. Number one. So the first thing I'm going to say is if you cannot cope with your levels of anxiety on your own, then you should be speaking to your doctor. Start with your primary care, have a conversation with them. They'll have you fill out a very a questionnaire that's not horribly invasive. It's more general questions of, on a scale of 1 to 5, how often do you have heart palpitations? How good is your sleep? They just sort of get you to quantify those things, right? So you fill that out, and from there they can decide if you need to be on a medication or not. And that's between you and your doctor. You don't have to tell anybody. There's zero reason to tell anybody that you're on anxiety meds. The only person I would say, one person should know in case something were to happen to you and you were to have a bad reaction. You probably want to have like your significant other or your parent or somebody very, very close to you that isn't going to judge you for it. They should probably know, just in case you have a bad reaction to the medication or you get in a car accident, so that they know what your medications are. But other than that, it's not something you have to announce to the world, right? I personally take medication. So if you're to that point, please seek help. There is zero judgment. There is zero shame for that. And if anybody is judging you or shaming you, then you send me a DM and I will be there for you. I will listen to you and we can talk through it. And I won't judge you for it because, like I said, I'm on it too. And I think it's ridiculous that in 2023, we're still having to say that this is a real medical condition and that it's not something you should be judged for. There are other things that you could do when you're feeling anxious. And there are things that you can do to kind of help keep that anxiety at bay. So the first thing is you should be drinking at least 64 ounces of water every day. That's good for you. That your body is mostly comprised of water. And if you're not keeping your water supply where it should be, you're not functioning appropriately. And that includes your brain. Your brain needs that water too, right? So 64 ounces of water a day. You should be exercising 2 to 3 times a week for 30 minutes each time. Exercise is good for your brain as well. It gives you, when you're doing a physical workout, it's releasing all these chemicals that help make your brain be better and function better. You should be getting at least 8 hours of sleep every night. If you are having a hard time sleeping or going to sleep and staying asleep, you should be looking at things like when was the last time I drank caffeine? Maybe you shouldn't be drinking caffeine up to a certain time. Maybe you should be turning off screens 30 minutes beforehand. You should not be sleeping with your TV on. That actually messes with your REM sleep as well. So you should be getting at least 8 hours solid every night. Another thing you can do is what is called grounding. And basically what it is you take off your socks and your shoes and you walk outside and you stand on the bare ground in your bare feet. And you stand there and you soak up the sunlight or the rain that's pouring on you because, I live in Oregon. If it's cold out and snowing, I wouldn't recommend doing it that time of year. But it is something during the nicer times of the year that you could certainly do. And there's something about that skin to earth connection that helps to recenter you and bring you back to a grounded state. One of the other things you can do is that you can actually go out and stand in the sunshine and get 15 minutes of direct sunlight every day. This is particularly important for those of us who live in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm sure other places as well. But I know that seasonal depression and seasonal anxiety is actually very prevalent in the Pacific Northwest because we very rarely get any pretty snow during our winter months. And so typically what we get is dark, cloudy, rainy days for months on end. We don't really see sunshine. It's just dark and cloudy and raining. So there's a lot of us that suffer from seasonal depression due to the fact that we're just not getting enough sunlight. It's just very depressing outside. So spending 15 minutes a day standing in direct sunlight, and I don't mean that you're standing in your house with the sunlight coming through you through your window. If that's your only option, that'll work. But really, you should be standing outside in the sunshine for 15 minutes. That's going to help you absorb vitamin D. And vitamin D is key to helping us to, it helps with releasing the correct, it mixes with everything so that you don't have anxiety, basically. The other thing, and this is my last tip for you, is to start each day off being grateful. I actually have a little journal that I call my gratitude journal. And every morning, the very first thing I do is I sit up and I write out 5, 10 things that I'm grateful for. I started off with 5 and I've been moving up to 10. So I write in that journal every morning. And it is amazing how much your mindset shifts and changes when you're constantly looking for things to be grateful for. And a positive energy, if you're starting your day out with positive energy and a grateful energy, that's going to continue to carry through for the rest of your day. And if you can keep that up throughout the day, so instead of, oh, I tripped over the kid's shoes again, if you can say, you know, I'm grateful that I have shoes to trip over because there are people out there who haven't had babies or can't have babies. I'm grateful that my children are still around for me to trip over their shoes. And then teach them to come. And then once again, remind them to come put their shoes away, right? I'm not saying that you have to just let that slide and take care of it for them, although most of us moms, that's what we're going to do, right? You can still call them in and be like, hey, put your shoes away. But just be grateful that you have the ability to do that, right? Or I'm grateful that the rain is coming from the sky because that's why Oregon and most of the Pacific Northwest is as green as it is, because the rain is what does that, right? Like our massive amounts of rain is part of the reason why we're so green everywhere. There's always green. So those are just a few things that you can do. Watch my reels. I have those listed out in a separate reel. So watch my reels for that. The other thing you can do is daily affirmations to just remind yourself that you are enough, that you're not responsible for how other people react to your emotions, that you are worthy of love and respect, that you are allowed to choose to do what you want to do. It's not someone else's decision. So repeating those things to yourself, and again, I'll have a separate reel of those. Watch for that. Repeating those things to yourself will also help you to it just starts recalibrating your brain, right? It starts helping you. The other thing that I would recommend is if you do have unresolved issues from trauma and you are experiencing quite a bit of anxiety, therapy can also help. So therapy or counseling, however you want to look at that. Just having somebody you can go and talk to and talk through, hey, I'm feeling anxious right now. Can I just sit and talk and talk through this? The other thing that counselors can do is they can give you some techniques. They can teach you how to do some deep breathing, how to do some visualization, etc. That will help you get through anxiety attacks, like full-blown anxiety attacks when they happen. So definitely seek that out if necessary. The other thing that a lot of people do, and this actually comes to my mind because of an experience where I just had somebody tell me that they were told anxiety is not a real thing. You just need God and you need to pray more. So the funny thing is that he said that to somebody who has been going to church and praying for their entire life and are actively doing so, which they pointed out to said person. But yes, I absolutely believe that having a faith and praying, that those things do help with your anxiety. Absolutely, they can help with your anxiety. But they're not the end-all, cure-all. No single one thing that I've mentioned is an end-all, cure-all. The best way to resolve your anxiety is to fully heal from those traumas. And the thing is that a lot of us, you guys, it may just be so imprinted on your brain that you're never going to 100% heal from it and never have anxiety again or never experience an anxiety attack again. And that's okay. That's okay. Anyway, you guys, thank you for listening to me rant about all of this and talk about all of this. I wish you all hope and love, and I thank you for watching. Have a great day. This is my life. Welcome to it. Enjoy yours.